All right, so let's begin with the session today. Um, this is almost fifth session, I guess, right? Fifth session in the DevOps series, and today we'll be looking into Jenkins part two. So in part one, we have seen installing Jenkins, setting up simple jobs, configuring the job, and today we are going to look into where the job folders actually go. Okay, what are the different folders which are present in the default installations, and what happens in the background when you install the stuff. How to get your jobs running on the slave. Now, this is what is going to be covered in Jenkins part 2 today. We are going to also look into what are the basics of AND, what is AND and what's Maven, what are the differences between them, and what are the basics to get started with a very small project in AND and the same thing in Maven. Okay, if time permits us, we will also see in a topic called load balancers that the load balancers are systems that help us in distributing traffic across multiple machines in the network, or maybe a cluster, okay, based on very specific parameters, or either we use some algorithms to decide what has to be done. One of the algorithm which is more famous is called round robin, in which we separate out the traffic to each one of the nodes in an equal slot. Okay, so one request per machine, whatever number of machines you have. If you have three machines, you would be splitting the traffic as A, B, C, again A, B, C, and again A, B, C, and so on. First request to A, second to B, third to C, fourth to A again. That's how round robin would work. There are other parameters as well. That means based on CPU load, or based on memory consumption, based on IO, which is occurring on the network, you could also decide. But generally in production, we use round robin. So we'll be looking at load balancers, which is called HA proxy, based on round robin if time permits us. Let's start with Jenkins. I'll be getting to the machines again, okay, which we already have configured a day before. So I need my machines to be up. We were playing with Jenkins, and the repository that we were using was GitHub. So my Jenkins machine is running. Jenkins by default executes on what port? Anyone? So I have logged into my machine, and on this machine, port number 8080 is blocked by Jenkins. If you want to check, let's check the service status first. Service Jenkins status. It says it's running with PID 1013, and let's start. Port number 8080 is used by some process which was 1024/Java. That means Java process was there, which is blocked in the port. Okay, so it's running on the port 8080. IP address is 56.147. So let me go to the browser and connect to the Jenkins instance here. 192.168.56.147 would be my Jenkins server. Something seems to be wrong here. If down eth1, if up eth1, Okay, so it's interesting it is not connecting to this machine. Let me start this machine. Also, you need to reset the adapters. So I'm changing the adapter settings here as well. Sometimes you need to do that. We'll check again if the machines are able to be connecting. So that rarely happens, but when it does, you should know what has to be done. Service Jenkins status. Okay, that's working. If config, the IP address is 147 again. Let me check if I'm able to connect to this using my putty. 192.168.56.147. Port number is 22. Okay, so that's working. It should work on browser as well. There seems to be some cache problem with the browser, so I have shut down my browser. I'm bringing it up again. Okay, so now it works. So I'm using Jenkins. On Jenkins yesterday, we have set up a job. Okay, so where this job folder has went, we are going to check it. So very first, while installing Jenkins, there are a few things that happens in the background. First thing is that a folder is created. Okay, so folder is created at var lib Jenkins. So that's the default path. Number two, a user is created. Okay. Number three, if Java is not there, Java would be installed. Number four, Java home is set. Or Jenkins directly points to the location where Java is. In that case, Java home it doesn't have to be set. Okay. So all these four options, sorry, four steps are done when we install. Once Jenkins installation is ready, step 5 is to set up the services. Okay. So all the steps happens in the background when you install Jenkins. So expect that Jenkins user is present on your machine. If you want to check it, simply cat your etc password file. Okay, and pass the result to another command called grep. Then we'll be figuring out if Jenkins exists. So it says okay, Jenkins exists. It is having a user ID of 105, group ID 112, and the environment which it has been granted has been bash. It is using the home folder as varlib Jenkins. That means Jenkins user is using home directory as varlib Jenkins. It is not slash home slash Jenkins. Slash home slash Jenkins does not exist. All right. So that's in the background. All your folders would be kept at location varlib Jenkins here. Okay. So by default, you would be looking at a few files. Now config.xml is not present by default. Initial installation config.xml is not present. It would be dumped only when you happen to change anything on the Jenkins configuration side, not on the job configuration, on the Jenkins configuration. So yesterday we have changed the executor count to 4. Okay, that's why the config.xml was dumped here. Config.xml files would be present all across the Jenkins installation, but at different levels. And at different levels, different config.xml files mean different things. At the base level, it means that it is holding Jenkins specific data. Okay, so you'll be looking at num executors to 4. So this is a XML file that would be telling Jenkins how to behave, or how to load its own global settings, whatever we set up. Okay, anything that is not present here would be picked up from the default pool, which is hard coded in Jenkins. Then at the job level, there would be a folder called jobs, which would be holding all your jobs. The other XML files are plugin specific, and they would be holding plugin specific data. Either it is Maven, or there are Git plugins or source code management plugins or tasks, whatever we are trying to build. Okay, all those plugin level XML files would be present at this level as well. Then the job folders is the important one, which holds all your jobs that you are creating and its configurations. Nodes, we haven't created a slave node yet, but when we do it, all your nodes configuration would be again saved to nodes. All these files are XML files. Okay, plugins would be holding the plugins that we are installing. All the plugins would be having their own folders, as well as extensions. .jpi would be present on the parent file. Okay, so we installed Git plugin yesterday, which is Git client. So Git client.jpi is present. There would be something called as Maven is present. Okay, so there are multiple plugins, whatever we have seen in the available section. Okay, if you install it, they would arrive in the install section and they would be present here. Let's move out. One more important folder which is present is called user content. Secrets would be holding all your encrypted passwords. Updates would be holding updates which are downloaded but not installed yet. User content is the important folder that I would be telling what is it. Users would be holding all your users that you are going to create. User content. Now this folder is the one which is shared over HTTP. You're looking at the screen. If I type in /user content, it would be listing all the directories and folders which are there inside user content. For now, there is just one single readme.txt file which you can read. As soon as I add another file inside user content, so let's add a file. I'm just using touch command to create a file and not dump anything inside of it. So the file would be empty. So I'm using it to just create a file there. User content, the file name would be temp.txt. Okay, so the file just exists there, but there wouldn't be any content inside of it. Readme.txt is already there. So as soon as I add it and I refresh the page, I should be able to see temp.txt present, which is 0 byte in size because the content is nothing, empty content. So if you want to share any logs, any data, any reports to the public via Jenkins screen, via Jenkins HTTP protocol, in that case you would be dumping it to user content. Simply adding a link there or a shortcut there would also work. Okay, let's jump to the folder which is more important than that. It is jobs. So I'm at varlib Jenkins jobs, which would be holding my test job which I've created, git test. Cd to git test, and you would be able to find many more folders inside of it. Out of these folders, all your build related documents or logs would go to the builds folders. Okay, job configuration is kept in config.xml. Here the config.xml is different than what we have seen outside. Okay, if you see, it would have all the different configurations that we have set up. Keep dependencies false, days to keep, it's not set, numbers to keep 5. Okay, then we have set up our Git repository, which was present at GitHub. We have set up SCM to check every minute. SCM trigger is set to check every minute. Then we have set up the build command, right? rsync anything that is present on this machine to some machine called 146, which is the IP address, and some path. That is what we have done yesterday. If you change the configuration files and restart Jenkins, Jenkins would be picking up the configuration from these files. It will not validate what's happening. Okay, so you could use XML files to hack into Jenkins. If you don't have access to the front end but you have access to the back end, you could change the configuration files and make Jenkins work according to your settings. And you can also use this to bypass the security. So let me check. When we set up security here, I would be showing you how to bypass security if you get locked out. Inside this folder, there are two important folders which you need to worry about. One is workspace, which is the last one in the list, and builds, which is first one in the list. Builds folders would be keeping all your intermediate logs. So there are 4 builds which occurred on this particular job. Git test. You see number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and all of these 4 folders are present here. So the folder list goes on increasing. That's why we decide to keep only a limited number of builds there, logs of limited number of builds there, and delete all the previous ones that we don't need, that we don't require. And all of these, last build failed, stable build, successful build, unstable build, last unsuccessful build, whatever these are just the pointers or the links that would be pointing to one of these folders, and they would keep changing according to the latest build that happened. Okay, so last failed build is 3. So these are just acting as tags or identifiers. So the third build here looks differently than the fourth one. Okay, what's inside that? So if I open the folder called 1, which is my first build, it would be giving my build.xml, which is required for ant building. Currently that file will not be having anything except for the project, which is marked, but the build steps are missing. So I will talk shortly of what different build steps are and what are the targets that you need to place in there for that to work. Currently it is just holding some data, but none of them is actually a build step. Another one is changelog. Changelog would be having the changes that have that the repository has undergone. So let's see, changelog.xml. It's currently empty. The repository was a fresh repository. Okay, let's check it on other folders. You will be getting it. We will open another one, which is log. Log says it has connected to the Git and it has updated the current listing here locally. Now these logs and the logs that you see here on the job side, if you go to this console output which is present here, okay, the one that you're looking at on the screen, this log and the log here is exactly the same. Okay, except that a few things would be changed. That means, see, currently here you are able to see some hash, okay, which is probably a user ID for Jenkins. Okay, so this link which is mentioned here would automatically be converted like a hyperlink here on the web front end. Okay, so coming back to another folder, we'll jump to another one which is 3, and we'll try to see what were the changes, or maybe 2. 2 would be having some change log in there, I guess. Yeah, so this is a change log that happened on Git. Before we started the job, someone has committed some changes to it, and the message was testing auto trigger. The change was committed to file index.html using these hashes. The changelog.xml would be very specific to the SCM that you are using. For Subversion, it would be something different. For Git, it is something different. For some other SCM that you would be using, it would be something different. Okay, so these are the log folders that would be generated in Git for your specific jobs. Another folder that is important is called workspace. Currently, I'm inside my job folder at the root level at the job, okay, where config.xml is placed for the particular job. Here we would be looking at another folder. First one we have seen builds, another one is called workspace. Now, workspace folder would be holding your actual code on which you want to operate. This code right now has been taken from Git, so you should be able to see all the code which is there on the Git server dumped down here. Let's open up our GitHub account. And repositories, we were using git test. So there's index.html here. The same file is present at this location as well. Okay, then you decide what has to be done on it. Now this is not the only location where Jenkins operates. Okay, all your dynamic data, job related data and your configurations are kept at where Jenkins. The static data, which is the war file using which Jenkins executes its services, would be kept at location opt or user share Jenkins. Yes, that's the path. It's user share Jenkins, and the war file would be kept at this location. If you want to update your Jenkins, then in that case you would be downloading the war file from the internet. Okay, we have seen where to download it from, right? Jenkins war download. Now these are the war files. If you want to update your Jenkins or downgrade your Jenkins, simply replace this war file jenkins.war with the one that you download from this location. Okay, the location is updates.jenkinsci.org/download/war. You can also search it on Google. Like download Jenkins war would give you a link where you would be downloading the war files from. Simply replacing the war files would do. So for taking backup, what you would be doing? For taking backup, you would be copying everything that is present inside varlib Jenkins. And also remember the number of the version number of the war file that you are using for running the Jenkins. Or preferably you could take a backup of jenkins.war as well. Okay. So how do you restore the backup? Restore the backups is even easier. You have copied this location to take a backup. You can copy it back here to restore the backup. Okay, so Jenkins is very flexible when it comes to picking up the configuration and running. So it would be using all the XML files which are there. Okay, so if you change the XML file, it would start behaving according to it. All right, so let's jump to the real configuration here. So what I need next is we want to run this job, but we don't want to run this job on this machine. We want to run this job on the slave machine. The reason why I want to do that is that Jenkins is a system which supports multiple jobs at once. Okay, and also multiple configurations. If I have a requirement where I need to have the jobs running on different operating system altogether, let's say my operating system on which I'm running Jenkins is Ubuntu, but I want to build a code on CentOS. In that case, I need a different machine. I want the job to be running on different machine. Okay, that's one of the use case. Another use case might be that Jenkins is already loaded with lot many of jobs, and the capacity of this machine is not enough to support all these jobs. So I would be splitting those jobs together across multiple machines. Okay, so I need a helping hand. That's why I would be creating a slave machine and connecting that to this master one. So let's do that thing. We need Jenkins slave to be created. We already have Jenkins running. I would be creating another machine, which I would be calling as slave. Jenkins-slave, and I'm going to connect this machine as slave to the Jenkins master. Is
Yeah,
everyone
Ashish,
with me?
Murli here. I have a doubt.
Yes, Murli.
Ash- yeah, like Jenkins is like deployment tool for code, and like J8 is like a shared drive for like where the developer put their code, and right?
Jenkins is not a deployment tool. Jenkins is a
Okay,
continuous integration tool
okay,
using which you would be doing any checks, installing, building, packaging of the code to generate the final deployable artifact.
okay, okay.
Okay, that you would be using to deploy somewhere. So using a deployment tool, you would be picking up the artifact and deploying it onto the machines.
So like it is not a deployment tool you're saying.
It is not a deployment tool. It is a continuous
Like,
integration tool. But we can do deployments as well using Jenkins.
like can you explain in a like in a layman terminology what exactly Jenkins works? And also I want like I need a clarity like why yeah, like what J8 is like a shared drive where the developers will put their code, am I right?
Yeah, generally developers wouldn't put their code in a shared drive. They would be putting their code onto the SCM or source code management software. They would be committing it
So
to Git or SVN.
yeah, yeah, that like it's like a shared drive like to like distributed in a distributed environment. That's it, correct?
Sorry, I didn't get the last sentence.
And like what is the difference between an SVN and G8?
Okay, Git. So SVN and Git are version control systems. Both of them are version
Okay,
control systems
okay,
that helps us in storing the data. Okay, not
okay.
exactly the binary data, but we are committing the files there. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
making any changes to the file, I need to
Mm-hmm.
figure out who made the change, when he made the change,
Okay,
what was the reason why he made the change there. Okay,
okay, okay. Mm-hmm.
that's why we would be using Git or Git. Okay, so we call it
Okay.
Git and Subversion. So the architectural differences are there between Subversion and Git. Subversion is client server kind of architecture, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Git is a server server kind of architecture where all your machines would be acting as servers. So it is P2P
Mm-hmm.
connection kind of thing. Kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not P2P connection actually. It uses SSH, whereas Subversion would be using HTTP to serve your data by default.
So all the coding stuff will be like all the coding stuff will be placed in G80. What that's correct, I guess, no?
Yeah, that's Git, and all your coding would be placed there. It is called a SCM, source code management
So
software, or it is also
okay.
called as a version control system or VCS.
Mm. So like how about G80? It's same thing, like I guess, no?
Uh,
Like I'm still in confusion like between HV and G80 and Jenkins. Jenkins like what?
okay,
Like please can
so
you
there
tell
are
me like
different categories
yeah.
in the complete build pipeline. So in the
Okay.
initial class, I've told you the complete architecture that how it is going to be. In the client machine, which is a developer machine, you would be
Okay.
coding. You would be
Yeah,
making some
like, yeah.
modifications to the code.
If yeah, if you don't mind, can you like show me like in a pictorial plan so that in a layman term like what exactly how it works like SV and G8 like in a simple way that's it. Like just go
Okay,
that's it.
so we are having a developer machine, a developer working on its own box.
Got it. Yeah.
When he wants to collaborate, when he wants to share his code with other people, and also
Yeah.
to benchmark the code to save it
Okay.
somewhere, he would be pushing the code out of his machine.
Yeah.
Okay, and he
Like
generally
once yeah
pushes it to
once
SCM.
once a yeah once he program is like as a programmer once he done with the code he will put into SVM you're saying.
Right. So either it could be SVN or Git.
Okay, fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
those are the servers that fall in SCM
Yeah.
category.
Yeah, like this will be actually by all multiple developers. Okay, you
Right.
like
Now
it
the
actually
multiple
yeah.
developers can coordinate.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so there would be multiple developers who can coordinate uh,
Okay.
using the code which is at SVN and Git. Now
Mm-hmm.
once the code is there, the code
Yeah.
has left the developer machine. Now we are free to check that code, scan it, build it, test it, and after that
Mm-hmm.
create a final artifact out of it. So
Okay.
there would be a server that is required that would take care of all this stuff.
Okay, fine.
And that phase is called continuous integration.
Okay.
And since everything should happen automatically, so we need a daemon which is always up and taking care of all these things for us. The server
Okay.
that we are using is Jenkins. There are others as well in the market. Bamboo is there, Team City is there.
Okay.
Okay, then there is Travis, which takes care of it. Another one is Garrett is there.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are multiple softwares which are available in market, but we are using the open source one, which is Jenkins, for our CI
Yeah.
integration and requirements.
So Jenkins plays like it will take like different modules and it will integrate into a one program. You're saying, am I correct?
Depends on how your software is built. If your
Yeah.
software consists of all the microservices which are placed in different modules, then Jenkins would do
Mm.
all the integration for you.
So it's only for integrating, like clubbing all the modules into a single code, like into make one build version. That's right.
That's one of the use of it. One of the
Okay. Okay.
use. Other
So what
uses
type
may
of
be for scanning the code, okay, sending the notifications to the developers.
like
Check.
scanning in the sense like to find any bugs you're saying, like any if any errors, like
Yes, the initial level scanning.
that's
So
okay.
it might be scanning for just styles, it might be checking for semantics, standards, syntax
Okay.
errors,
Okay.
dependency checks,
Okay. Okay.
executing the automation test cases that your testers have created. Okay, so
Okay.
automation testing is also one of
That's
the
like a
roles of Jenkins.
okay.
Sorry, can you come again?
Yeah, it acts like compiler kind of thing, like it's a for debugging also.
Yeah, you can say that that's also one of the roles of Jenkins.
Yeah.
Okay, so after automation testing, it would maybe install and then package your code together as a deployable
Okay.
artifact. So in case of
So
maybe
major advantage is like what? Yeah, what is the major advantage? Like how it makes critical?
major
Like critical,
advantage
right?
is that it supports automation. So anything that you
Okay.
would be doing manually, all this stuff, which is actually a testing part, people have
Okay.
to go through it. The code which you have which you need to be deployed onto production. The testing team would do all this stuff manually. Okay,
Oh,
but since we are uh, following agile, we are expecting lot many commits in a single day, and we don't expect the testers to be on their toes every now and then to test your complete code.
okay. Okay.
That's why we take help of automation, and
Okay.
Jenkins would be helping us automate each and every step of that complete pipe.
So
Okay,
literally we can say like it acts like tester, like good tester to
that's an
take to take.
automation. Yeah, you can call it as automated tester.
Okay, okay, got it. So
Okay.
again, we'll for to deploy a code into server, again we will use some other separate tools to deploy. You're saying.
Yeah, Jenkins in our case, what it does is it is actually automating all the steps that we are doing manually. There are some
Okay,
plugins that can help us do it. There are plugins for helping us deploy onto other servers as well, because that is eventually a manual work. So if you could tell Jenkins how to do it, Jenkins can automate it for you as well.
okay.
So it is not actually a deployment tool, but you could use that for deployment.
So main motto is to make like to make testing like to make the code perfect. That's it.
Yeah, eventually that's the eventual goal, because we don't want to send buggy code onto the production.
Yeah, yeah, got it, got it.
Okay, and
That
this
that's it. Thanks.
phase where Jenkins fits in is called continuous integration.
Okay, okay, got it. That's it. Thanks, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey people, I don't remember specifically, have we covered SVN and Git setup on the server side? I guess we did. Can someone help me with that? Krishna, Nagarjuna, Prudvi, or Raghu, can you help me with this? That have we covered subversion and Git installation on server side? I remember that to be yes.
Yeah,
I need your confirmation.
yes,
Yeah, we did Git.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's go on. Another query here from Raghu. Why are we using Jenkins with Puppet? What is the main use? We are not going to build an RPM for Puppet. Okay. Uh, why do we use Jenkins with Puppet? So let's go back. Okay, I've deleted that. Let me bring it up again. So in the continuous integration phase, our code moved from the SCM to your continuous integration system, where all the checks would be done. There are multiple steps that you would be adding. We would be adding just one. Okay. In a regular enterprise, you would be placing in as many multiple steps as you want. You'll have to coordinate with testers, you'll have to coordinate with developers that what are the steps that they are doing manually and automate that using Jenkins. Okay. Eventually you would be getting an artifact that you would be deploying. For deploying it onto the production machines, we know that the Jenkins can take care of a build step. At once it can fire only one single command. But if I want to deploy it onto 100 of different machines, I'll have to fire 100 different commands on Jenkins. and it would be in a sequential manner. If it fails on one of the machines, um, it would just give me back an error, and the rest of the machines will not be getting that code. Okay, so Jenkins is not a preferred option for deployment. So what we do is we move the code from Jenkins to another system which is responsible for handling the infrastructure, and that system in our case is going to be either Puppet or Chef. Okay, Puppet preferred, because that is what we are going to cover in detail. Jenkins would push the code to Puppet, okay, and Puppet would be deploying that onto multiple nodes at once. That means parallel deployment will happen using Puppet. So moving the code to the nodes is the task of the configuration management software and not the task of Jenkins. Okay, does that make sense? Building RPMs, building deb files, or creating installations is all the work of Jenkins. So if you want to export an RPM, okay, maybe you don't want to deploy it onto the nodes, but you just want it to be available for the public download. Even in that case, you'd be using Jenkins to create a RPM for you, because that is eventually the end deployable artifact that you would be generating. All right, that's how it works. Great. So let's go back to our infrastructure setup where I was creating a Jenkins slave. We have Jenkins and we want to attach Jenkins slave to the Jenkins machine. So this is my Jenkins slave box. There are a few prerequisites that you would be doing before attaching a node as a slave to Jenkins. First thing, you'll have to create a user Jenkins here. Not mandatory, but you should do it to keep uniform credentials all across the machines. Okay, so that's the reason I'm creating another user. I would be creating a user and I will assign that user the same folder which is on the Jenkins master. Jenkins master, the folder is varlib Jenkins. Okay, you could use any folder where you would be keeping your files on the slave, but I would prefer the same location so that you don't have to scan the system or search the system for where the files are. Okay, so let's follow a convention. So I'm creating a user here, user add. Uh, I would be adding it to the default group, which is Jenkins. We would be giving it a home directory, which is varlib Jenkins. We would be adding a shell for it, which is bin bash. So if you remember that on Jenkins machine, let me show it to you. When we check the Jenkins machine, cat etc password and grep Jenkins, we saw the part to be varlib Jenkins and the shell which was granted is bin bash. So I'm trying to duplicate all the records which are there on the master side. So on the Jenkins slave, user add d varlib Jenkins, um, minus m minus s bin bash, and the username is Jenkins. Okay. Also set up the password for this user. So password for the user Jenkins. It will ask you to reconfirm. That's it. Okay. So we have set up the user and the password. So let's see if the folder exists. Varlib. There should be a folder called Jenkins. Let's check. It's the first entry on the screen. It's Jenkins. The ownership is given to Jenkins user. Let's check whether it is present in the etc password. Grep Jenkins. All right, very similar. Okay, so this is similar to the one that we have created on the master side. So once that's done, you are all set to attach this node to your master. Just get the IP address of it, and on the master side, go to the home page, go to manage Jenkins. On manage Jenkins, you would be having an option of managing nodes. You'll have to scroll a page a bit. Okay, in the manage node side, you would be clicking on it and adding a new node. So new node option here on the left hand side, click on it. It would be taking you to the new node. Write a name of the node. I will give the name as I'll call it as Ubuntu slave. Okay, and that's a unique slave. So click on it and OK. It would take you to the configuration screen of that node. When you fill up the description, if you want to, not mandatory. Remote root directory is mandatory. We have created the remote root at varlib Jenkins. This is the directory where Jenkins would be keeping all its files on the slave directory. Labels. Labels are tags or groups that you want this machine to be a part of. If the label does not exist, you can simply create it by writing the label name here. I will name that group as slave group. Okay. Usage. Now utilize this node as much as possible, or you could keep that node offline. Okay, and use it only with the jobs. So you could also have the availability section set it up. So it says keep this slave online always, or take this slave online according to a schedule, or take it online only when there is demand or there is job which is supposed to be executing here. Now how many jobs should be executed is set up at the usage part, that this node is available for all the jobs, or this is available only for the jobs which are assigned to this node. I'll show you how to assign a job to this particular node. Okay, that has to be set up on the master side. The host, the IP address. The IP address is 192.168.56.60. It is going to connect over SSH, so make sure that OpenSSH is installed. Uh, we have already taken care of installing OpenSSH on the template side, so whenever you create a new machine out of that template, in that case you should have OpenSSH server already installed on that machine. Okay, credentials. So credentials that we have added for the Jenkins user, Jenkins and the password that you have just set up on that machine. Click on add, use the credentials and get going. Okay, click on it and it would try to connect to that machine and bring that machine online as a slave. You could check the log from the log tab here on the left hand side. Let me check what the log is. It is trying to open SSH connection to that machine. So it's still work in progress. It has successfully connected, and now it says that the slave is successfully connected and online. Okay, so once this message arrives, that means your slave is now connected to your architecture. So Ubuntu slave does not show a cross sign. It says that it is successfully connected with all its summary being shown here. Okay, that's how you attach a slave. But how do you execute a job there? In order to execute a job, get to the job, open up the configuration screen of the job, and on the configuration screen you would be able to see one more option which was not present earlier. It says restrict where this project can be run. This option is available only when you have more than one machines to be dealt with. Currently we have got two machines, one is master machine and the one is Jenkins slave. So I would be checking it up and I would say that this project should be run only on master or only on the slave that we have just created. The name of the slave is Ubuntu slave, right? You simply have to type in a few characters and Jenkins would be giving you suggestions on which ones to select. Okay, so we have selected Ubuntu slave. So the job would be restricted on this machine only. If you don't do it, it would be running on all these machines together. But since our job is very specific to the configuration, maybe I would just want to run it on a CentOS machine, we can restrict it on one single box as well. So we have mentioned the labels here. Our case as well, we are running the job which is dependent on Git. Okay, so if I restrict this job on Ubuntu slave for now, apply, save it, and try to run the job, it might not run. See, it's giving error. The reason is it is not able to connect to Git. And if you remember on the master box, for running this job, we have installed one package, and that package was called Git package, right? So on the slave side as well, you'll have to take care of setting up the environment. Apt-get install Git. So I'll do apt-get update and apt-get install. Install Git there, and we will see whether the job executes properly or not. All your job configurations will still be on the master side. Your job configurations are never copied onto slave. The slave would be only holding your workspace folder where your actual code is checked out. Your build folders, your logs would still be on the master side. So slave helps you only in executing a job. The actual static files which are related to the job except the workspace are all kept on the master side. It would take a few seconds for finishing. It seems that it has lost the connection. I'll try it again. Next step that we are going to look into is how to set up security and how we can bypass the security if you have access to Jenkins on the backend. Let's let's first install this one. Okay, so I will not be setting up the complete job. You already know how to set up this demo job for us. And during the deployment, we have set up passwordless authentication. Now at least I've installed the package, so it should fix the first error. But eventually it would land in the second error, which would say that rsync isn't working now. Because for rsync, we need passwordless authentication to be set. Okay, so Git worked, passwordless authentication does not work. Um, it's trying to connect to a machine on a particular IP address. Let me check what the IP address is. Okay, so IP address is 192.168.56.146. I guess this machine is Apache machine. Let me check. Yeah, so that's Apache box. Uh, okay, so let's cover that part as well. I'm trying to set up passwordless authentication using the user called Jenkins. No, it's using Ashish user to connect to that particular machine. So here I'm using Jenkins on Jenkins slave and set up passwordless authentication onto that box. To set it up, very first we need a key. So generating a key, and after that we are copying that key again to the machine where we want to set up passwordless authentication. It's 192.168.56.146. Okay, connect to it, type in the password for the first time, and you are all set. Let's check. Now execute this job again. It works. Okay, no problem. If you look at the log, it would say started by user I don't know, anonymous, building remotely. Now this is not building locally, it is building remotely on Ubuntu slave server. So your workspace would be on that machine. So on the slave machine, what's there on the slave boxes? On the slave machine, you would be looking at a folder called varlib Jenkins. You don't have to take backup on the slave machines. Backup only has to be done on the master side. You'd be having a folder called workspace. Now your slave.jar is also present in the same folder. Workspace folder. Inside workspace, you would be having job specific folders. And inside the job specific folder, you would be finding your workspace directory. Okay. All your builds are still kept on the master side. Okay. So far, so good. But we don't want anyone on this environment to just play along with Jenkins. So we want to add some security to it. To add security, go to manage Jenkins, the second tab here, which is configure global security. Click on it and enable the security. So for setting up the security, it's very simple. Enable security, check it. It would be bringing up some other options in front of you. As out of those options, you could uh, select the one that you need. Okay. For enterprises, you would be using LDAP. You'll have to check with your own LDAP managers to get the settings for LDAP. If you click it, you will have to give the addresses of the servers and some more parameters to it. I'm using Jenkins own user database. So Jenkins would be keeping the files in the folders that we have seen, the users and the secrets folders. Okay. If we don't allow the users to sign up, in that case, currently there is no user present on the system. Okay. If you don't allow users to sign up, we won't be able to create users. And if there is no user present, you will not be able to sign inside this machine. Okay. So that would create some problem. You would be locked out. So Jenkins own user database, let's create an error. I won't allow users to sign up. Okay. And I would say that, okay, only logged in users can do anything. I don't want other people to screw this machine. All right. Apply, save. It doesn't even let me save it because I'm not a valid user now. Okay. Don't worry about this error. This error is actually not an error, but it is just throwing a problem because I'm not a valid user right now because we have enabled security. Let's go back to Jenkins screen and see what it shows. It gives us an option, okay, that there is some problem with this server. Oops, sorry. And you are not able to log in. So you can sign up or try logging in. Uh, some users, some credentials wouldn't allow us to do so. So what I'll do is I'll sign up. Okay, but currently the sign up options is also missing because we haven't checked that sign up option there. Okay, so how do I get past this? I have locked myself out of the Jenkins console. To bypass it, we know that all the configurations would be kept in config.xml on the master side, of course. It says use security. Use security has turned to true. I can make it false. Okay, and then do service Jenkins restart. So restart the machine, sorry, service. Go to your browser, refresh it again. This time it wouldn't ask you for any of the login. So we have completely scrubbed off login from Jenkins installation. Go to the home page, it allows you to do so. Okay, login screens will not worry you anymore. Go to manage Jenkins again. We will check what there is on the settings, security settings side, and the checkbox that we have checked earlier, it would be disabled because the settings which sorry, the file where it is picking up the settings is config.xml, and we have changed the content there, and it would be reflected accordingly inside the web panel as well. So enable security this time. I'm going to allow myself to sign up, apply. If you see there is no error which has occurred this time, and save it. Okay. Now I could go to login and also can sign up. One more thing that we did, we want only logged in users to do anything. I don't want anyone to mess up with the stuff. Okay. So go back to the home page, and now uh, the admin options are all missing. You don't have option to manage Jenkins. You don't have an option to build the job from here itself. Okay. On the jobs as well, you cannot see the option for configuring the job. You can only see the logs which were there. All right. So let's sign up. My username, my password, some email address, and sign up. It says you are logged in. Now go to top page. Logged in users can do anything was the policy that we have set up, and it is allowing us to manage Jenkins. We can also have matrix based uh, configuration set. That means if I want particular user to be granted specific rights, I could use matrix based security where we could add the user like this. Let me check. It's missing the overall read write permission. All right. Uh, I have simply messed it up. What I did was I simply pressed enter twice. So it automatically saved the entry and we haven't checked any of the rights. So I just skipped a step here by accidentally hitting enter. Okay, how do I fix it? That can happen with anyone. So I was trying to set up matrix based security where all of these options were unchecked and I accidentally hit the enter twice. So it got saved and I was locked out of the system. So let's wait for it to finish the loading part. The application server that Jenkins uses is called Jetty. Not sure why it is taking so long. Okay, we'll wait for it. All right, so that was the last topic to be covered on Jenkins. The next thing that we are going to look into is build. Okay, so when we talk of the different build steps in Jenkins, we have seen that we could add different build steps. But Jenkins is not the only tool that can help us to coordinate the build steps. There are other ones as well, and Jenkins integrates very nicely with those tools as well. The tools are called Ant, A-N-T, okay, or Maven. So Maven and Ant both were actually created for Java-based projects. So here our Jenkins is up. Let me show you what I blooped there, what we did as a mistake. Configure global security, enable security, Jenkins own database, allow users to sign up. I'm going to uncheck it for now. Logged in users can do anything. So on the metric based security, what I did was I accidentally added the user here. I hit the enter, so it was add, which was automatically added. And the next time I hit enter, it automatically saved it. So my rights were not added. So I would have added the rights like this before saving the screen. Okay. You can also check and uncheck all these at once if you want to. Generally, we don't use this metrics based security because we don't want all of the people to get access to Jenkins internals. We just only limit these users to the shared logs and any of the documentation that we are sharing in user content folder. That's it. Okay. If you want to attach LDAP credentials, you could do it from the LDAP options as well. Once you create your user and you are logged in, make sure that you disallow this user signing up option so that other users don't get any access to the Jenkins unless and until you specify. If you want to specify a particular user to be working there, in that case, let me log in. Okay. So here, if I want to create the users myself, I could go to manage users section and create the user and then sign up manually for that particular user. Share the credentials for the user and user should be able to log in. Okay, that's how we create the users here. We don't uh, allow the users to sign up after the initial sign up that we have done as an admin. Okay, so let's talk of the another build tool. So build tools here which are available in market were Ant and Maven. So Ant and Maven both were created for supporting Java-based projects. So Java-based projects have got multiple dependencies. So we could package the dependencies as jar files or war files, keep them separately somewhere else. Then when we need, we can import those bundles altogether or use them as microservices. So this dependency management was getting tough day by day because there were a lot of different dependencies which are generally managed in the bigger projects. So how do you deal with that? So these people, what they did is they created the tools called Ant and Maven. So the differences between Ant and Maven is that Ant is a completely descriptive tool where you describe each and every step, what has to be done, how it has to be done, what has to be followed in which particular order and all those things. Whereas Maven considers convention over configuration. So what Maven says is, okay, I know that you would be following all these steps. So why not to expect the code to be in a particular directory and the dependencies to be in the another directory, the test to be kept in a separate folder. Okay, so I would be creating these folders myself and you will have to dump your code there so that I already know without you configuring that uh, that where is the code, where are the test cases, and I would be taking care of everything. Okay, that's what Maven says. So Maven uh, is following a convention. So you need to be very specific about the environment in which you are building your code. Maven uh, describes the environment for you and you'll have to follow those rules. Whereas in Ant, you don't have to do so. That's the reason why Maven cannot easily be used for other languages. Whereas Ant can easily be ported uh, to work with any other languages. Maybe it could be C, C Sharp, VB, even Perl, Python, and PHP scripts can be ported to Ant environment, but Maven it's a bit tough. Jenkins supports building with both these tools. So if you look at Jenkins screen and the job configuration, here instead of adding a build step like we have done with rsync, I could also say invoke Ant and pass the parameters here. Okay, or I could say invoke Maven targets and I could place the Maven targets here. So automatically there would be a command which is executed in the background, which is ant space all the parameters and Maven space all the parameters. All right. So let's see how to work with ant and Maven. It would take a lot of time for installing Maven. Today we would be getting the systems ready for ant and Maven. So I would bring up a machine. Let's call that machine as slave. We would be running all the jobs on slave, right? So I'd be setting up ant and Maven on slave. For installing Maven, you need Java to be installed, you need Java Home to be set up, you need Maven package to be installed. There are two ways of installing Maven. Either you download the zip file from Maven's official website and then unzip it here on the system, or even easier, you could do apt-get install Maven version 2. Version 3 is already out, you could use version 3 as well, but version 3 is not available with Ubuntu as of now. Okay, so version 2 is what I'm going to use. You could simply type Maven for getting the older version. Okay, so I'm taking Maven 2. It would take a lot of time. It is downloading almost 119 MB of docs and then would try to integrate that. So I'll give it some time. We still have got 15 minutes to go. So if you have any queries or doubts from the previous sessions, feel free to ask. Any vague question is welcome. If this finishes off before 15 minutes, we will see how to work with Maven. Okay, but I don't think it would be. So what is going to be covered in the next session? We would be looking at working with Ant and Maven, integrating Ant slash Maven with Jenkins, and the next topic, which is load balancers. If you don't have any queries, I can take up load balancers because it is a small topic. Any questions, doubts, queries?
Ashish,
Yes.
yesterday we have created some soft link for and made the same kind of HTML like homogeneous to interact with both of them. What if we don't make a homogeneous like same for
Okay. If you have different paths where the code is to be deployed,
yeah
I made it homogeneous for a reason because we wanted to deploy the code onto two different machines which were running two different web servers. Okay, that was the only reason why we tried to create a soft link, because the rsync command that I'm using on Jenkins, I wanted to use the same command to push the code onto the Nginx server as well. On Nginx machine, the code is on some different location. It is at user share nginx slash html slash web slash html, I guess. So this is where the folder, where your default folder is going to be.
yeah
But in cluster, in a regular cluster, all your machines are going to be the same, homogeneous. Okay, so you don't have to create soft links in that case. So this was a custom stuff that we did.
okay.
Any more questions?